As winter tightened its icy grip on the Finnish wilderness in the depths of World War II, a young Finnish soldier found himself entrenched in a battle that seemed more against the elements than the enemy. The year was 1944, and he was stationed on the Karelian Isthmus, where the Soviet forces were pushing hard against the Finnish defenses. The bitter cold seeped through every layer of clothing, turning the air into a biting, unforgiving force. The young soldier, whose family had lived in a small village near the front lines, had joined the army with a sense of duty and a fierce determination to protect his homeland. But now, after months of constant fighting and the harsh winter setting in, he felt the weight of exhaustion in his bones. His rifle was almost as cold as the ground he slept on, and the frostbite nipped at his fingers and toes, threatening to take them if he let his guard down for even a moment. The nights were the worst. The silence was so complete that it felt like the entire world had been buried under the thick blanket of snow. Yet, the stillness was always broken by the distant sounds of artillery fire, a constant reminder that the Soviets were drawing closer. The soldiers' comrades huddled around small fires, their faces gaunt and eyes hollow from lack of sleep. They spoke little, conserving their energy and bracing for the inevitable next assault. One particularly brutal night, the soldier was on sentry duty. The cold was so intense that his breath froze into crystals in the air. The sky was clear, the stars twinkling as if mocking the misery below. He scanned the horizon, his mind wandering to thoughts of home, his mother's warm kitchen, the laughter of his younger siblings, and the peace of the forest before the war had torn it all apart. Suddenly, the sound of movement in the trees snapped him back to reality. He tightened his grip on his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. He signaled to his fellow soldiers, and they moved into position, their breath coming in short, sharp bursts. The snow muffled all sounds, making it difficult to tell where the enemy might be. Every shadow, every rustle could be the Soviets creeping closer. The tension was unbearable, and then, with a flash, it happened. The Soviets launched an attack, their dark shapes moving swiftly through the trees. Gunfire erupted, and the night exploded into chaos. The young soldier fired his rifle until his hands were numb, the recoil sending shivers down his spine. He could hear his comrades shouting, the cries of the wounded, and the deafening roar of artillery. The snow turned crimson underfoot as the battle raged on. But the Finnish soldiers were resilient. They had the advantage of knowing the land, of having fought in these woods before. They pushed back with everything they had, fighting not just for survival, but for their homeland, their families, and their way of life. The battle seemed to last an eternity, but finally, as dawn began to break, the Soviet forces retreated, leaving behind the fallen and the smoke of their failed assault. As the first light of day touched the treetops, the young soldier lowered his rifle, his body shaking with exhaustion. He looked around at his fellow soldiers, their faces smeared with dirt and blood, but their eyes still burning with defiance. They had won this battle, but he knew the war was far from over. The Soviets would be back, and each time they returned, it would be with greater force. The soldier wiped the sweat and grime from his face, his breath coming out in ragged gasps. He felt a deep sadness for the lives lost that night, but also a fierce pride for what they had achieved. As he walked back to the camp, the snow crunching under his boots, he silently vowed to continue the fight, no matter the cost. For now, they had held their ground. The Finnish winter, their greatest enemy and ally, had once again proven to be an insurmountable barrier for those who did not understand its brutal beauty. But the young soldier knew that every day they held on was a victory, however small, in a war that had already taken so much from them.